Rig Om. Om Gajananam Bhudaganadisevidham Kavittajambho Balasarabakshitham Umasudam Sokha Vinashakaranam Namami Vigneshwara Pada Pankajam Om Gajananam Mahakayam Vignarajam Vinayakam Vishvesham Vishvashaksham Ganeshayam Namo Namaha. Om Shreem Hreem Kleem Glom Gam Ganganapadaye Varavarada Sarvajanam Me Vasamanaya Swaha. Om Sahanau Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunakthu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinhavaditamastu ma vitvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmalar Spatikhatrudhim Adharam Sarva Vidyana Hayagrivamupaasmahe Yasyadvaradamakradyaya Parishatya Parashatham Vignam Nignam Tisatatham Vishwashremam Tamashraye. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurudhevo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Sarvalokana Visaje Bhavarogina Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Sri Dakshinamurthaye Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Sarveshwararpanamastu. Harihi Om. Sai Ram, and welcome to week 13 of this journey into the wisdom of the Upanishads. And I'm sure after 12 weeks, something must have triggered something else within your thought process that should have made some difference to your speech process, and collectively should have manifested in some change or transformation in the physical process, right? Don't worry if it hasn't happened yet. Everybody has their own time and makes their own journey according to that time and capacity and capability and ability. Yours may come, at a time when it's meant to come. You cannot rush spirituality just because you think you are ready, right? It has to come when it has to come. So, having gone through 12 weeks, right, the first week, I introduced you to the Vedas, the 4 Vedas, and within the structure of the Vedas, where the Upanishads sit, right? Then we looked at Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, then Chandogya Upanishad, then Taittitriya Upanishad, then Aitreya Upanishad, then Kaushitaki Upanishad, then Kena Upanishad, then Katha Upanishad, then Ishavasya Upanishad, Prashna Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad. Last week we looked at Mandukya Upanishad, and today we are looking at Swetasvatara Upanishad, right? Next week we will look at Brahmanubhava Upanishad. And the last Sunday in 2021, I will close with a consolidation and Q&A session. And please be mindful to attend that, because I'll be giving some information or important information going forward, right? What the plans are for 2022. So coming to Swetasvatara Upanishad, right? always I start by telling you the rough timeline when it was written or authored, right? So this, we are going back to the 5th to the 6th century BCE. Again, the Swetasvatara Upanishad is a Mukhya Upanishad, right? And it is part of the Yajur-veda. And if you remember, I told you the Yajur-veda has got two divisions. One is called the bright or the Shukla Yajur-veda, and the other is the dark or the Krishna Yajur-veda. And one or two of the Upanishads that I've spoken about, I've related it back to where its position is. That is the Shukla Yajur-veda. And this particular one, the Swetasvatara Upanishad, is part of the Krishna Yajur-veda, right? In total, it has 113 mantras, which is divided over 6 chapters, right? And the central theme or the philosophy of the Swetasvatara Upanishad is the universal self, the self and the universal self, right? You have to transmit yourself to the universal self, right? You understand there are two selves there, but in the middle there is this word universal, right? So you have to use this universe in order to latch onto the universal self. And when you do latch onto the universal self, you drop the universe and the original self. And that is called the process of merging. Right? Then you are one with Brahman. That means you've understood rather, the universal self which exists in every individual. And it expresses itself in the wonders and the beauties of the creation. Everything in the world that you see is a projection of that universal self, that single oneness, that unity of self, right? So for you to understand and go into the Swetasvatara Upanishad, first you must be at peace with yourself, right? At 3 levels. I always told you why you say 3 Shantis. First physically, then mentally, then universally. 3 levels, 3 gunas, right? 3 kalas, 3 devis, 3 murtis, like that. 3 levels, physical, mental, and spiritual. Okay. The author of the Swetasvatara Upanishad is a rishi, the Maharishi called Swetasvatara Maharishi, and hence, the name is attributed to him. It's also called Swetasvatara Upanishad, right? Upanishad, one word, Swetasvatara Upanishad. And as I said, it is one of the Muktika canons. It is a Mukhya. It is number 14 in the list of the 108, the lineage of importance, of significance. This is listed as number 14, right? And as I said, it's divided over 6 chapters, and in total, it has about 113 mantras, right? So, what is the meaning of this Upanishad? See, it opens with some metaphysical questions, right? About what is the primal cause of existence? What is the origin, the Adi and the Anta, right? And what role, if any, does time or nature or necessity or chance or spirit play in this question of what is the primal cause of all existence? So it's quite as I said, it's based on metaphysics, but I'll try and bring it down to a level where you can understand it. But of course, if you ask that question, what is the primal cause or the source of all existence, then the answer is the universal self, right? The universal self is the answer, because if you don't see divinity in others, you will never recognize the divinity that prevails or pervades or reverberates in the universe. Because that is the oneness you're trying to achieve. At the end of the day, I keep telling you, don't go outward, go inward and merge with that one within you, because that is the universal self. Then, if you can't see that universal self in existence as a divine energy, as a spiritual energy, right? Of course, the spiritual energy is there, but it's covered by the veil of Maya, right? So you got to lift Maya. Then you can see, then, the journey is much quicker, much shorter, right? So to help you make that journey, to help you remove that Maya is where the concept of Ishvara or God comes in. And of course, a few minutes time, I'll be talking about, Ishvara from a Sadguna perspective and from a Nitguna perspective, right? And this Swetasvatara Upanishad is also important because it talks about Rudra or Shiva, right? Many times throughout the 113 mantras, So let me tell you firstly, what is the meaning of the Swetasvatara word, right? Upanishad, Upanishad, the first week itself, I explained to you what that means, right? So here, the Swetasvatara, of course, has the compound Sanskrit root, right? It's three words: Shweta, Ashva, Tara, right? Shweta, Ashva, Tara. The three words. Ashwa means white horse, right? That's why I think at one or two points in the course of the delivery of the various satsangs, I've mentioned about Ashwamedha Yajna, right? Happened in the Mahabharata, happened in the Ramayana, And if you go to Kashi today, Varanasi, there is a gut. Kashi, all along the road, the banks of River Ganges, right? There are guts. Each gut has got a name, and the most famous one where the Ganga Arati takes place every day is called Ashwamedha gut, right? Dasha Ashwamedha gut. Dasha Ashwamedha, so 10 horses. So Ashwa means horse. Shweta means what? Shweta could mean white, right? Shweta Ashvatara, that means one who is carried across. Tara means carrying across, carrying beyond, right? So one who is carried across by a white horse, right? So it is also called Swetasvatara Mantro Upanishad, right? And it has a lot of mantras there are meant to provoke a certain thought, or that will give you some form of invertedness, some inner insight, if you like, that makes you become more fertile in your acceptance of that white horse. What is the white horse? The white horse is your guru, right? The guru that will take you across what? Across the ocean of samsara into Ashvatthara, beyond, right? So like I said, the Swetasvatara Upanishad has 6 chapters, right? Each varying in its own number of verses. For example, the first chapter has probably got about 16, second one has got 17, the third one 21, 22, 14, and 23. I think that is the breakdown, right? The last 3 verses of the last chapter, the 6th chapter, is viewed as an epilogue, right? Where it pays homage to the author, our Rishi, Swetasvatara, right? For giving this knowledge of Brahma Jnana to all the students and ascetics who come. So the style of writing is just like the Mandukya. Last week I said to you, the Mandukya is written slightly in a poetic style, right? But the, the depth of the poetry differs from, the meter, the structure, the chandaha, that differs significantly from chapter to chapter. And it's not very consistent across the entire 6 chapters, right? So that's something, not significant, but still, because if you read poetry, the poetry flows throughout. So that is significant because the more important ones are chanted in a slightly poetic meter, whereas the less important ones are chanted in a normal chandaha, okay? So like I said, the first chapter talks about the metaphysical questions, where the students are asking the teacher, who is Brahma? Is Brahma the cause, or Brahman the cause? whence are we born? Whereby do we live? Whither do we head? Those kind of questions. And Shankara actually looks at this. And one of the, Shankara, of course, has spoken about all the Upanishads and written widely and commented extensively on all the, almanacs. And he says what this basically means is the question relates to what is the primal cause of existence? What is Brahman? Now, these questions we've already answered, right? So it is kind of repeating what the Chandogya has said, what the Brihadaranyaka has said, what Ishavasya has said, right? So in some parts, like Swami, many times he repeats many things, right? Not because he has run out of material to speak about. The fact is, if I tell you 10 things and you can only remember 4 things, so it is worth me repeating those 4 things that you can remember and count, as opposed to me keep giving you new stuff, isn't it? So it's a skill-based approach, a knowledge-based approach, right? So when they repeat, it is for enhancing and concretizing the level and depth of knowledge, not because, the person who's giving that knowledge has run out of things to say. I'm not talking about all the gurus that have come and gone, right? So Shankara as well. So he says, what is the primal cause? He says, this is the main question. Who is Brahman, or what is Brahman? From where are we born? I addressed this issue. And I also said to you, I think when I did Mundaka Upanishad, right, 2 weeks back, your rebirth is already planned in this birth. And what you think of at the time you breathe your last, when your prana leaves you, at that moment, what is the thought? That lays the seed for your future birth. And that is why they say, always think of God, always say nice things, always do nice things. So at the time when you're going, if that Traikarana Suddhi is there, where your thought, your word, and your actions are going in harmony, then you don't have anything to worry about, That is written in the Upanishad. And if the Upanishads are seen as the crest jewel of knowledge, then that knowledge is given to you, right, through these sessions. So the question then is, what are you doing with it? I want knowledge. Now, so much has been given. My question is, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing with it? Right? That is a question only you can answer. Right? So Shankara very easily says, the primal cause is the universe, but the cause that connects oneself to the universal self is yourself. Very clearly he says that. So let's look at the first adhyaya, or the first chapter, right? So 6 chapters, we'll look at them individually and focus on the main significance of each of those chapters. So then the question comes, if the primal cause is yourself, then where do you find it? Is it something that when you do something externally or extensively, then you get it, or what? And Shankara says in his commentary on the Swetasvatara Upanishad, he says, well, there are some people who, with the knowledge they have gained through the reading, through the listening, right? That's why one of the 9 parts of devotion, right? In the Navavida Bhakti, the first type of Bhakti is Shravanam. Shravanam is pure listening, right? It says those who have exploited Shravanam as the path of Bhakti and have managed to control their 3 gunas, they have managed to latch onto their innate personality, overcoming psychological attributes. That means when they go into meditation, last week I spoke to you about the secret of Om, chanting Om, A-U-M, and then the 4th state of Turiya, right? Complete stillness. After deep sleep, if you think deep sleep is deep, Turiya is the depth of the deep sleep, the base, if you like, the ultimate stance you can reach, and no place beyond that. Turiya, the dot, bindu. Anyway, so Shankara says, as far as the Swetasvatara Upanishad is concerned, the primal cause is within each individual, is the power innate. And the whole chapter focuses on this. It's called Devatma Shakti. Devatma Shakti. Within each individual there presides, right, this primal cause of creation called the self, which through its life, through its livelihood, and through its liveliness, trying to find that universal self. And that journey is what you call is, Jiva Samsara. Okay. So you have three things within you. You have God within you. You have non-God within you. And you have the eternal within you. Right? So the first adhyaya focuses on this, the knowledge of the self. If you do not realize this, it also goes on to say, then you are like a resting swan, a hamsa. Have you seen a resting swan? It's very profound, right? The words and their choice of illustration here, they have used that human beings, when they do not use, the powers of their bhakti, and they do not use the ability to go within, to realize, to come out of yourself, you need to go within. They liken this to a resting swan. Because when you look at a resting swan, it is completely movementless. You see, it is so still that, you might think, my God, is that a statue? Or is it a real swan or hamsa, So, and the first chapter goes on to talk about, we meditate on the river. And this river has 5 streams. Right? These 5 streams have 5 springs. These 5 springs have 5 vital breaths. And these 5 vital breaths have 5 different perceptions. These 5 perceptions have 5 whirlpools through its rapids. 5 pains, 5 branches of suffering. So everything is divided into 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. It doesn't give a very specific explanation of this particular verse, and I'm talking about the Sanskrit verse. So if you read Sanskrit, you may understand what it's saying, but you may not be able to explain it in such simple terms. So I'm going back to Shankara's commentary, right, to say what it means is the 5 streams that verse 1.5 is talking about. The 5 streams are the 5 receptive organs of the human body, right? The 5 waves are the 5 active organs of the human body. The 5 rapids are the 5 major health-related stages in the human body. So you see, all this is connected, right? The 5 waves can also be determined as the 5 koshas, the pancha koshas, right? Now, on the subject of meditation. So this one is telling you, right? This Upanishad is telling you, one of the ways to realize that universal self is by going within yourself through the medium of meditation, dhyana. And I've spoken to you where dhyana sits. Dhyana is the 7th stage, right? Or the 8th stage. In the Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 stages, dhyana is the 7th stage, right? Before 7, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you cannot straight away go to 7 and then hit the 8th one, which is samadhi, right? First, you got to go yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, then only samadhi. 8 stages, Ashta Anga Yoga, right? 8 stages. Anga also means body, but it does not mean, 8 parts of the body, right? Ashtanga Namaskaram, yes. You talk about the Namaskaram, where 8 parts of your body touches the ground where you are prostrating, right? That's for men, Ashtanga Namaskaram. For ladies, it's Panchanga Namaskaram, where only 5 parts of the body touches it, right? So the meditation actually says, right, and I've said to you, if you want to know more about meditation, go and read the Narayana Upanishad. right? Because that talks about the power of meditation and how you can tap into that source, that rich source. Meditation will give you the knowledge and the discrimination to distinguish between the knower and the non-knower. Remember, I said to you just a couple of minutes back that there are three things present in you: the God, the non-God, and both are eternal. So which one you latch on to and pay more? Which are you feeding more? That's what will grow. This is meditation will give you that sense of discrimination where you ought to feed the nitguna, right? Because both the Sadguna and the Nitguna are both eternally present within you. And hence you have that word antarayami. Antarayami tuhi alola tulasidhari ashtanga namana karo ao Sai Ram. Antarayami Sai Purna Brahma Avatari He Giridhari Hridaya Vihari Krishna Kunja Vihari. There are two different songs, but both have Antarayami. So just to bring that out, but wonderful. See, this is another way in which you can lose yourself. You from outside, you attend a bhajan, you're actually outside in the real world. And you're sitting and someone is singing, right? You can lose yourself just listening, closing your eyes and, going somewhere. One of the famous, I always listen to the words of the songs, and it gives me a lot of, it takes me somewhere, but I attach more to the words than just the words. For me, it must have a link to something else. So that is just a medium. Once I get that link, the word becomes, So one of the songs that I've carried with me, from Malaysia, is sung by Brother Jaga, right? It's an English song, but I always relate to that song resonates with me in many ways, right? I have traveled so far from home. I have left loved ones behind. As I stand here sad and lonely, oh my Lord, you'll come to me. So the way I relate to this song, see, this is the medium of meditation, right? When I go into that level of meditating on the words of the song, I may be present physically sitting there in a bhajan listening to it, but mentally I'm somewhere else. I'm thinking, I have traveled so far from home. I'm talking about the birth and rebirth. I've traveled so far from the origin of my true self, which is the universal self. I have left loved ones behind. All the karmic actions that I have accrued, I have left from birth to birth to birth to birth. You look at that distinction. As I stand so sad and lonely, Punarjanmaha. You think you are alone on this land, in this journey? No, because the fourth line confirms the existence of that eternal Antaryami. Oh my Lord, you'll come to my side. So whenever you listen to bhajans, right, you have to reflect on the meaning. I always say bhajana, manana, tarana, karana, right? Bhajana, janana, manana, tarana, karana, the 5 stages. Not just listening, right? What you listen must be put into practice, must be given to all the people. Bhajana, janana, manana, tarana, putting in practice, karana, do it. Right, so the text basically says when you go within, you see these 3 things, right? God, non-God, which are both eternal, right? But of course, you don't see the eternal until you can clearly latch yourself onto the Nidguna. Because the Sadguna is, I told you many times, the Karma Kanda that should get you to the Jnana Kanda. So from the form to the formless, right? Once you latch onto the formless, the form becomes immaterial and unnecessary. But you see, in this world, we are so latched onto the form that we forget to transmit ourselves from one stage to another stage, from the stage of ignorance to the stage of consciousness, from the stage of consciousness to the stage of superconsciousness. And that's why the Swetasvatara goes back in chapter 1 to say that power is within you, through meditation. Why don't you realize that you have this power, which is eternal, You are the Bhoktri, the subject. You are the Bhogya, the object. And you are the Pritri, the mover. You are the Bhoktri, the subject. You are the Bhogya, the object. And you are the Pritri, which is the mover. So why do you need anyone else to come and move you? You have to move yourself. You have to move yourself, right? So you have to meditate, because only through meditate you can eradicate every possible thing externally that is stopping you to going internally. This is the state of perfect freedom. Once you go in, the doors to the external world are shut. That's why you see in the ancient times, right? You've read, all the Dashavatarams. You've read, you may have read and you may have heard me talk about it, where all the rishis, the devas and the asuras, they meditate for years and years and years and years. Ravana became so powerful after 10,000 years of meditation. As I always said to you, only he has got the title Ishvara, Ravaneshvara, right? And the other one who's got that is Shanishvara, right? That's why the only person that Ravaneshwaran was a little bit disturbed was Shanishwaran. But his ego was so much, when Sanishwaran was captured after he became so powerful, all his ministers said, don't look at Sanishwara, right? He said, I am Ravana, Ravaneshwaran. Why should I be afraid of this fellow? And of course, Sanishwaran saw him, and then, the rest, as you know, is history. But what I'm saying is, only when you reach the state of perfect freedom, it's called the state of Kevalatvam. Kevalatvam, that means perfect sense of being, means perfect freedom. But you cannot get this perfect freedom outside. You have to get it inside. And we are talking about spiritual liberation, right? Not, liberation from capitalistic slavery. That's a different thing, right? The individual self is your true divine self that is within, as I said, antarayami. So unless you go in, you're not going to get that. So how do we go in? That's the second chapter. Second chapter is now coming to tell you, meditate. That's the only way to realize your inner power. Then the second one, that's why I said to you, right, the way these wonderful literature has been written and has been given, it sort of asks a question, it gives you an answer, and then it gives you a methodology to practicalize that answer. I mean, what more do you want? So you go to a doctor and you tell him, these are my symptoms, this is the way I feel. And then he says, okay, this is that is this is that. He gives you a diagnosis, right? Just the diagnosis doesn't treat you, doesn't make you well. He will give you some medication, and then you have to take that medication. Only when you take that medication will you feel any different. Now, just having that medication, now he's given you the prescription, now you've gone to the pharmacy, you've got that medication, the medication is in your hands. You have got the medicine, but you don't consume it, you don't take it. Are you going to feel any different? No. So this is the same thing. It's given you, it's in your hand, but you have to consume it. Until and unless you consume it, your state of body and mind will be detached. And yoga, meditation, is all about union of the body and the mind so that the spirit can realize itself. Otherwise, body will want to do one thing, mind will tell you another thing, and the inner mind will want you to do something else. All the senses are now overdrawn. You know what is being overdrawn, right? You have to withdraw all of them back and go do some introspection. Otherwise, you will still be on the outside. And one of the ways to do that is to become, non-judgmental, only judge yourself. Because who are you to judge others? The second chapter talks about self-knowledge and self-discipline. Self-discipline. Now, I want to emphasize one thing, right? If you want to grow spiritually, stop talking about other people. And let me say this in no uncertain words, right? If you are continuously talking about other people, you will never grow, spiritually. So I come back to the question, who are you to judge anyone? The only person you can judge is yourself. I mean, obviously, to become better. You have no right, absolutely no right to, judge anyone else. You're so opinionated, well, stop becoming opinionated. This person is like this, that person is like this. No. How are you? Every day ask yourself, have I improved? Am I improving? Will I continue to improve? Instead of talking about Mr. X or Miss Y or Miss Z or whatever it is. Do you think that in his grand scheme of creation, the creator would not have put a measure of how to judge his creation? Do you think that the creator is so dumb? Or is so silly, or is so stupid that you have to judge his creation for him? Please. Mura, Jahihi, right? Move away from this. Only judge yourself. That is why the creator has created the concept of karma. The person whom you are talking about, whether they have done something good or bad, they will accrue the karma for that. But you, by talking about it, you have also accrued karma. So aren't you the stupid one? Aren't you the foolish one? Aren't you the silly one who keeps accumulating karma unnecessarily? I said to you, karma operates on 3 levels. On the thought, you don't have to say. Just thinking accrues karma, right? But when you say that karma is confirmed, or when you do what you have said, like telling someone else, talking to others, threefold karma you've got. Fantastic. So from today, right, if you have a spiritual journal or what, say, I'm going to stop judging other people. I am only going to judge myself to see if there is any spiritual development or spiritual improvement. Because let me tell you again, who are you to judge his creation? Judge yourself, only yourself. That's what you have to do. Or I'll put it this way, if your life is so perfect, everything is perfect, then you judge others. That means you have no problem, no worries, nothing. You are vibrating at a complete 2020 level, total perfection. You've given a new meaning to the word perfection. Then you judge others, because then you are no different from Ishvara. This is what the second adhyaya, second chapter is talking. Self-knowledge, self-discipline. Only focus on yourself, not anyone else, right? The amount of times people have called me to talk about other people, I just tell them, please, you want me to talk to you, talk to me about yourself. I don't want to know what other people have said about other people that you have now got to come and tell me. No, I just want your opinion. My opinion is nothing. Because I am not God. I'm on the journey to realizing that I am God. And to do that, I cannot judge others. This is the human mind that's saying, what have you got to say about this fellow? What have you got to say about that fellow? Everybody is useless except you. Everybody is bad except you. Right? Move away from this kind of thoughts, this kind of practices. Right? If you want to grow spiritually, then you grow spiritually, but you cannot grow spiritually if you're continuously living a life that is going to give you the same results. Change some things and some results will change. Change everything, all the results will change. You know, this is what the second chapter is talking about, self-knowledge, self-discipline, right? Meditate. And another thing I'll tell you, the more you stop judging other people and the more you only judge yourself, at that point in time when you engage in meditation or you engage in yoga, you see how quickly you learn, you see how quickly you evolve. No, try it. Don't just take my word for it, right? Right. Because then the third adhyaya goes to say, once you know that self-knowledge, right? It's a beautiful piece by piece, stage by stage evolution, you know, from Manusha to Purusha, from Pushtaka to Mashtaka, right? From Karma Kanda to Jnana Kanda. Fantastic, you know, at that time and age, they have said all these things, which is, of course, more than relevant in today's age, today's day and age, today's time. The third adhyaya is where it starts to talk about Rudra or Shiva, right? Or this whole chapter 3 is talking about, you know, who is your personal God. And they refer to Ishvara, right? And of course, Ishvara is none other than, it's a name given to Shiva, Rudra. You know. And all of you recite the Rudram, you know, you recite the Sri Rudram. Right? Sri Rudram has got two components. One is called Namakam, the other is called Chamakam, right? Namakam is you giving praise to Lord Shiva. Chamakam is you asking, as a result of reciting those praises to Lord Shiva, what do you want? Anjame, Mayaschame, Nukamaschame, Kamaschame. You know? So you're asking me, Chame, Chame, Chame. Whereas in Rudram, in Namakam, you are saying, you know, Namaha, Namaha, Namaha. And you see the Sri Rudram starts and ends with the first verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. That is enough. Om, as I said to you, is the secret to realizing the universal self. So it's telling you, Akara, Ukara, Makaraya Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. Namo comes from two root Sanskrit words, Nama and Mamaha. Na mamaha. That means not my doing. It's not your doing. It's not your will. That means it's someone else's will, isn't it? Someone else's deed. And when I spoke to you about Bhagavad Gita, I said, who is the doer? Not you. Right? Right? You are an actor. The script has been given to you. All you're doing is acting. Right? But who's the director? Who's the producer? Right? Who's the cameraman? All that is all the, you know, the creator, the Panchabhutas, all that, Panchaindras, all that. So, Om, the beginning, the middle, and the end. You know, this is, when I did Bhagavad Gita, I said, Aham Atma Gudakesha, you know. That particular line tells you that I am the beginning, I am the middle, and I am the end. Aham Adischa, Madhyancha, Andamevacha. Krishna is telling, I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all. So this Om Namo Bhagavate. Bhagavate means the final feet. The final, you know, we always say, reach the final lotus feet. So, A-U-M, not my doing, the end of all is Rudra. That's why it's called the eradicate. So just saying Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. You can say that 108 times, you can say that 1,000 times, you can say that, you know, 700 times, you can say that, you know, 1,000 times times 10. Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya, Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya Namaha. Like that you can say. That is so powerful. But of course, if you then want to go and say the first Chamaka, first Namakam, second, you know, first Anuvaka, second, then you can, you know. But make sure you say it correctly, because words have, you know, Shabdam. Brahma is also Shabda, you know. Nada Brahmam, Shabda Brahmam. Right? Nada and Shabda are both sounds. So the sound that is created by the mantric vibrations creates that vibrations as a result. So if you say the right thing, you know, like one of the constant mistakes that I've corrected when people say, for example, Shiva, you know, and they sing bhajans, it's Om Shiva, you know. It's not Shivai, because the words have got two different meanings, right? Shiva means life, right? Shivai means lifeless. Shavam means dead body, right? So you have to say it in the right way. When you start on this journey to find that Ekadeva, that one selfless God within you, so that you can latch from the material presence to the universal presence, right? Maya will come and stop you. This illusion, this delusion, that will stop you, right? Stop you through your thoughts, it will stop you through your words, and it will stop you through your actions, right? So the third chapter also talks about the Atman as your personal goal, right? Whether you call him Isha or Rudra, right? And maybe on another session I will talk about the Sri Rudram. Every namakam has an object, has an objective, an aim or a goal. So if you want good health, for example, then you should start a specific namakam, right? If you want wealth, specific namakam. If you want to, if you've got many people who are, so-called enemies, for want of a better word, right? Many people don't like you, or, all of that. And there's a specific namakam. But that may be another session. But the third chapter goes on to talk about that. And through this, it is telling you to also, third chapter also makes references to another Upanishad called Nila Rudra Upanishad. Nila Rudra Upanishad, right? Nila Rudra, the Rudra that is blue. Now, this Upanishad was actually recited by Brahma when there was a Soma rituals, Soma Havan taking place in Indraloka. So when it was being completed, at the time when it was going to be completed, Brahma got up and recited this called Nila Rudra Upanishad, right? And Bharat Vajarishi was there. So he brought it down to the earth and has given it as Nila Rudra Upanishad. It is not one of the main Upanishads, but a branch of the Atharvana-veda, right? So this is also telling you that. And it's from this chapter that my research tells me that if you want specific things from different anuvakas, you can get, right? So you see, all the secrets are coming out. That's why, the Upanishads are the crest jewel of knowledge. So once you get there, then the fourth adhyaya is telling you from Ishvara or Rudra, then you focus on Brahma. From Brahma, you focus on Brahman. So what is it telling you? It is telling you from a form-based, you want to move to a formless-based. But you have to use the form so that you can relate yourself to the qualities or characteristics of the form, so that qualities and characteristics either you can imbibe or desire from yourself and move to the next stage. Brahma, Brahman, in between there is another called Brahmam. So Brahma, that's Brahma, right? The final stage is Brahman with an N at the end, Brahman. But if you don't do anything, if you are like the swan, motionless, movementless, then you are Brahmam, Brahmam. That is equivalent to Shavam. Shavam is a dead body with no Shivam in it. Shiva is life force. Shakti is the movement. Right. So this one says, there are three things that you must realize before going to Brahman. One is the three types of, levels of energy, right? One is called Prakriti or nature. This is the original form of the external world where everybody is living. But you live as two types, so three, right? One is the Prakriti, then the second is called Bhadha Jiva. This is where a living entity who just wants to enjoy the whole of the Prakriti. Or you can become something called a Mukta Jiva. Someone who wants to forsake Prakriti after having experienced Prakriti to latch on to Brahman, right? Prakriti in chapter 4, right? talks about colors here, right? Particularly, it talks about Prakriti is so attractive. She has many colors, but three particular colors that it refers to here. Now, colors does not mean, blue, orange, red, white, that sort of thing. But colors here means characteristics, gunas, right? So you have the three gunas. Trey guna rahiti, right? That means you have the sattva, the rajas, and the tamas. So sattva is characterized as white. And this is where the color comes, white, balanced. Purpose is to show consciousness or to allow consciousness to manifest itself, right? But that consciousness can only manifest itself if you go within, right? Rajasic guna is characterized as red, a bit hued, that sort of color. Its purpose is to inspire creativity and expansion, but it doesn't move from the materialistic world, And tamasic is characterized as dark and blue-black, Its purpose is to allow things to cease, to rest, to contract, or what we say, coagulate, and not, so it's a bit like inertia, lack of it. See, so the metaphor of these three colors has also been interpreted by, some of the Western as harmonizing purity as in sattva, passion as in rajas, and destructive darkness or inertia, as in tamas, right? But one is called Prakriti, one is called Purusha, and one is called Brahman. And these three stages, right? Rajasic, Manusha, Purusha, Brahman, like that. So chapter 4 is interesting because it tells you, how you can latch on by doing certain things, right? And the word Shiva is particularly mentioned in this chapter. Actually, if you count the number of times, right? Chapters 3, 4, 5, 6, Shiva is mentioned at least 7 or 8 times, right? And this is important, right? Because the Swetasvatara Upanishad, right, according to Shankara, has the same value as Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita has served Vaishnavism, right? Well, it has served humanity, but this is how the scholars have looked at it, right? Whereas Shankara says the Swetasvatara Upanishad has done the same thing as the Bhagavad Gita, but for Shaivism, for Shaivites. Swetasvatara Upanishad, for Vaishnavites, Bhagavad Gita. But I am saying for human, you can use any, right? There are different ways, many roads to Rome like that. So in the 5th chapter, it talks about Brahman, and it says, once you know, recognize, and accept. You see, this is difficult for people to do because once you know, you recognize, and you accept means that is at 3 levels. Knowing is in the mind, right? Recognizing is in the mouth, speech. And being aware is in the actions. That means, can you imagine what a perfect character you are? If you have that consistent and constant consciousness that Brahman is everywhere, with that knowledge, you can be liberated. And the 5th Adhyaya focuses on this. See, 3rd and 4th refer to Rudra. Then the 5th goes to Brahman, right? Of course, you are born in a default state of ignorance. Then what happens? Then from a default state of ignorance, the 5th chapter says you can elevate yourself to a realized state of knowledge. And the 3rd, of course, is the further elevation of that realized state to the eternal omnipresence of Brahman, where you embrace the Nirguna force. Knowledge, the 5th chapter says, is deliverance. Knowledge is liberation. And knowledge is Brahman. The whole focus is how you conduct yourself. Self-knowledge, self-discipline, self-transformation, right? And I told you how to stop judging others if you want to involve yourself in spirituality, if you want to evolve in spirituality. Stop judging. I'll ask you that question again. Who are you to judge? Judge others when you can show others that you are so perfect. Otherwise, don't. Because you're accruing karma for yourself. Right? No matter how bad you speak about that person, right? You're accruing karma for yourself. So why? So the sixth adhyada is telling you from realizing that you need the knowledge and using Rudra to get that knowledge. And then once you get that basic knowledge, elevate yourself to the higher knowledge of Brahma. And then from Brahma, to Brahman and become the universal self. When you become the universal self, you are dropping the self and the universe out of the equation, right? One Deva, Eka Deva. Like the Rig-veda says, Egam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti, God is one, but wise men have given him many names so that many more can relate to that one God in many ways. So the destination is one, but the journey is many. Right? So the sixth chapter tells you how to get Sarva Vidya. Sarva Vidya means complete knowledge. Swetasvatara Upanishad. That is why it's something that's going to carry you forward to the next stage, across the ocean of samsara. And we sing that bhajan. And I told you to reflect on the words of the bhajan, right? Swami's first bhajan, Manasa Bhajare Guru Charana. That's the first two lines. Is enough. Manasa Bhajare Guru Charanam. Charanam, not Sharanam. Two different words, right? You pay Sharanam to your Guru's Charanam. Charanam. Manasa Bhajare Guru Charanam. What is he saying? He's saying surrender to the Lord, your Guru's feet. Manas, your mind. And the question is asked, so what if I surrender my mind? Then the second line answers that question. Dustara bhava sagara taranam. It says, once you surrender your mind at my feet, then it is my job to take you across this ocean of samsara. Dustara bhava sagara taranam. How many hundreds or even thousands of times you may have sang this bhajan? Did you once reflect on the depth of the information there? How many bhajans do I need, brother, to transmigrate? You only need one. Right, so God is veiled inside man. The Purusha is verily present inside the Manusha in his innermost self. But there are so many layers. And I spoke to you about the Panchakoshas, about how to, deveil those layers and get into the innermost layer, which is Anandamaya Kosha. That state of being in complete Ananda is where you are one with Brahman. So how do we do that? Okay. First is what? Annamaya Kosha. Eat what is needed for your survival. Just because your neighbor can eat 5 plates of biryani doesn't mean you must eat 5 plates as well. Your body is different, your mind is different, your intellect is different. Eat what you need, not what you want. Because only when you eat what your body needs, your body can function so that you go to the next kosha. Pranamaya kosha. Or Manonmaya kosha. Isn't it? What you eat or your thought process can actually manifest itself in different ways in your mind. And that will tell you how you breathe, isn't it? Pranamaya kosha. It's all about breathing. You eat too much, you have difficulty breathing, isn't it? If you're overweight, you have trouble breathing, isn't it? Trouble walking, trouble breathing, all those kind of things. So food is the first key. Then breathing. Then only the mind becomes aligned. Then Vijnanamaya kosha. Then only Anandamaya kosha. That immutable reality, you must transcend it. Otherwise it becomes very difficult. And I want to say something about the swan before I end today. Why swan? Why is swan the term Hamsa frequently referred to, symbolic term, at least in Vedic literature, to represent the highest self? And it's used in most, most of the suktas. You'll have, Hamsa there. And of course, Goddess Saraswati writes on her Vahana is, Hamsa. That's why she's called Hamsa Vahini. Right? Hamsa Vahini, Vidyadhaini, Veda Mata Shri, Hamsa Bhagavati. Right? Now, the swan, if you look at the swan, what are the qualities of the swan? Firstly, it's white, right? White means purity. Purity here translates purity in your thoughts, purity in your speech, and purity in your actions. Otherwise, there is no purity, right? Only the hands are clean, but the mouth and the mind is completely, dark. Purity must come from inside the thoughts, outside the words, out external actions. The swan, it can put its beak, and if you see the swan, it's always in a pond or a lake that is, quite filthy. And it's not nature that makes it filthy, it's human beings around it, throwing things, all kinds of things. You eat whatever you want to eat. Now you go and feed all these ducks and birds and whatever, everything you don't want to eat, or whatever that is left over. All the bread. And it's not just good bread, it's bread that has gone off, basically. Anything that is expired, I'll take it to the park and feed the birds and feed the swan and feed everything else. Remember I said, if you want to do dana, you must give what is near and dear to you. If you give what you don't want or what you want to throw away, that is not dana. It is something else. Again, karma, right? So, the swan, in that quality of surrounding, all dirt and everything, the moment it puts its beak in that dirty water, it has got the innate ability to only sip pure water, which is completely clean. So it's got like a filter system. That filter system is what we call viveka, or a sense of discrimination. Swan. So wherever you see the word swan in Vedic literature, it is the reference to your highest self, and your highest self is your knowledge, self-knowledge. Self-knowledge cannot increase if you are not self-disciplined. Self-discipline you cannot get if your thoughts are only selfish. Your thoughts must become selfless. Then you will become the true Vahini for the goddess of knowledge, Saraswati, to sit on you. Right? Wise will always perceive the divine as dwelling within. The fools will always perceive the divine as dwelling outside. So they keep looking for it outside. They will never find it because it is inside. I told you the story of the man, right, who was a thief, who followed a rich man who was carrying a lot of money and going on a yatra. The purpose of the thief going with this fellow is to rob him of his money. So every night when the rich man was sleeping, this fellow was searching all the bags, everything he couldn't find. So after 2 or 3 months, he gave up and he asked the merchant, the rich fellow, I've been following you, but I have to be honest with you. My main aim was to steal all the money from you, right? But every night for the last 3 months, I've been searching your bag, your clothes, everything, even under your bed, under your pillow, but I could never find it. Where do you keep your money? He says, every night when I go to sleep, I put it under your pillow. So it was always under your head. But you were looking for it everywhere else except in your own bed and under your own pillow. So that knowledge, that viveka, that discrimination is within us. That divine spirit is within us. You keep looking for it externally, outside, you will never get it. You will never perceive it. Because if you don't have that yoga, you won't get that mukti. That yoga is that insight. You won't get that mukti. And the sixth chapter also tells you this is the end of misery and sorrow. Because once you realize that oneness, once you go from Rudra to Brahma, Brahma to Brahman, then is it. That's it. You have sought refuge from complete freedom. You are in that level of Anandamaya. That what will stop you is your own thoughts, your own words, and your own actions, your own karma. Your own karma will stop you. That's why you need Deva Anugraha. Bhakti. Bhakti, the word bhakti is also referred to in the sixth chapter. It is said that one who shows bhakti, right, that bhakti must manifest itself to service to the Guru, and through the Guru to the people. Even bhakti, if you say, oh, I got a lot of bhakti, that bhakti itself is a gift from God. It's Deva Anugraha, Deva Prasada, right? Chapter 6 refers to this as Deva Prasada. If you say you are holy, then that is a gift of God to you, right? Because that is yourself. And you're slowly realizing that. And the more you realize, the more holy or the more spiritual you become. Now, surely you were not born with that. That's a realization stage, right? So how you use this knowledge to elevate yourself is what the sixth chapter is all about, right? The other thing about Swetasvatara Upanishad is it talks about three different concepts, right? The monotheistic concept of a single God, the pantheistic concept of what, the self and the universe and all that, and of course the monist theories, right? And pluralistic theories and all of that. But I am saying this is the job of scholars. Their job is to take something and either confuse it or, dismiss it as a non-entity. That's what they are supposed to do. But you, right? As your teacher, as your acharya, as your guru, I can tell you that you should not be worried about the characteristics of what is monotheistic or what is pantheistic or what is pluralistic or what is monist. Your job is what is the knowledge I can get from this. You have that knowledge. Who wrote it, when they wrote it, everything else is not important. Because that is what you need to turn inwards to realize that the Ishvara is within you. If that is given, why do you worry whether the concept is right or the concept is wrong? If it works for you, it works for you. One man's meat is another's poison. So why you should, right? So once Swami asked his students, what is the best form of liberation? He asked his students. So he waited for some response and all of that. And after a while, he said, the best form of liberation is to be born at the same time as an avatar. But even greater than that is to know that avatar. Even greater than that is to love and be loved by that avatar. But he said the highest liberation is for you to serve the avatar by serving his jana, these people. When you serve more and more and more outwardly, you go inside more and more and more deeply. And at one point, you and I will merge as one. Anyada sharanam nasti tumeva sharanam mamaha tasmat karunya bhavena raksharaksha Saishvara Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Saishvara Namastu.